doing?
Not just any cop.
Netflix's action television catalog in 2026 runs from ancient Japanese ninja dynasties to 1,200-year-old Witcher mythology to a brand new adaptation of one of action fiction's most enduring novels, and most of it generates less conversation than it deserves. This list covers 7 series that have earned your full attention. A prequel that explores the Witcher universe's most underexplored historical period, a live-action anime adaptation that treated its source material with genuine care, the most ambitious crime series Netflix has produced in years, a Man on Fire that gives Yahya Abdul-Mateen II the leading role his career has been building toward, and a French political thriller that proves the Has Fallen franchise was always more suited to prestige television than feature film spectacle. 7 series, all of them currently on Netflix, all of them worth the time. Let's get into it. Number 1, The Witcher, Blood Origin, 2022. The main Witcher series established a world rich enough to sustain exploration of its deeper history, and Blood Origin, a 4-part prequel set 1,200 years before Geralt of Rivia ever drew his sword, takes that opportunity seriously. The story follows the creation of the first Witcher and depicts the conjunction of the spheres, the cataclysmic event that merged several worlds into one and set in motion everything the main series depicts. For devoted fans of the franchise's mythology, this is essential viewing. For newcomers, it functions as a self-contained fantasy action series with a distinct aesthetic and a deeply compelling lead performance at its center. Michelle Yeoh as Sion is the series' centerpiece, the last surviving member of a nomadic elf clan and a swordswoman of extraordinary capability whose reasons for joining the coalition against the Empire are as personal as they are political. Yeoh was operating at the peak of her physical capabilities, coming off Shang-Chi and Everything Everywhere all at once, and the choreography built around her is calibrated to her specific gifts, fluid, precise, with a quality of weight and deliberate intent that makes every exchange feel meaningful rather than decorative. Sophia Brown as a warrior-turned-bard provides the emotional core of the ensemble, and Lawrence O'Fuarain as the warrior Fjall anchors the more physically direct action dimension with a grounded conviction that the material demands. The 4-episode runtime is perhaps the most underrated aspect of Blood Origin's value proposition. Where the main series sometimes struggles under the weight of its own mythology and its multiple timelines, Blood Origin is forced by its format to be economical. Every scene must earn its place. Every character must establish themselves quickly, and the payoff of the conjunction itself has to land in the final episode with enough force to justify the entire investment. It largely manages all of this, and the shorter commitment makes it an accessible entry point for viewers who found the full Witcher series demanding. The costume design and production design construct a pre-Witcher elf civilization with enough visual specificity to feel like a genuine historical setting, rather than generic fantasy pastiche, an achievement in world-building economy that the longer format could have easily spent 12 episodes on without achieving more. Blood Origin is for the viewer who wants the Witcher universe's action at its most mythological in scale. What follows is for the viewer who wants that same sense of a warrior legacy carried through generations, but in contemporary Japan, through the lens of a family that has been hiding what it is for years. Number 2, House of Ninjas, 2024. The Tawara family are Japan's last surviving ninja clan, living in suburban cover after the apparent defeat of their ancient enemy. The eldest son is dead. The patriarch is rigid with grief and a sense of duty that the younger members of the family were never fully consulted about. When a figure from the organization they destroyed begins to reemerge, the family's carefully maintained civilian life collapses, and Haru Tawara, the second son, a reluctant heir who has spent years trying to live normally and at a considerable distance from what he actually is, finds himself carrying the family's operational burden whether he agreed to or not. Netflix's 2024 Japanese original is one of the most formally accomplished action series the platform has produced in this market. Kento Kaku as Haru delivers a performance of dual-register precision that earns every scene the show gives him. The comedy of his failed civilians sitting alongside the genuine menace of what he is capable of when the circumstances demand it. The show understands that the ninja genre's dramatic potential lies not in the technical execution of the tradecraft, Though the action choreography throughout is exceptional and specifically designed around ninjutsu principles rather than generic martial arts vocabulary, but in the moral and psychological cost of having been trained as a weapon before you were old enough to consent to the training. Every combat sequence in House of Ninjas is preceded by enough character work that the violence carries weight beyond its visual spectacle. The Owlman design, the series' primary supernatural threat, rooted in actual Japanese Highland folklore, is rendered with a practical, specific, unsettling quality that makes the creature feel genuinely embedded in its cultural tradition, rather than imported from a generic monster playbook. The family ensemble around Kaku is consistently strong. The patriarch played with a granite authority that makes his emotional rigidity feel like a survival mechanism rather than a simple character flaw. The mother with a quiet devastation, the siblings each maintaining a different and specifically characterized relationship to the family's legacy. At 8 episodes, House of Ninjas uses its runtime with the efficiency of a series that knows precisely what it is doing with each entry. The action sequences range from intimate household confrontations to larger-scale set pieces, all staged with a geographic clarity that the action genre too often sacrifices to stylistic excess. From a ninja family's buried warrior legacy in contemporary Japan, what follows crosses into a completely different kind of action universe, the live-action realization of one of animation's most beloved and most carefully constructed worlds. Number 3. Avatar: The Last Airbender, 2024. The original Avatar: The Last Airbender, animated series running from 2005 to 2008 and created by Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, is widely considered one of the greatest animated television series ever produced, which made its live-action Netflix adaptation one of the platform's most scrutinized 2024 productions from the moment it was announced. The result is a series that respects its source material with a faithfulness that the platform's previous live-action anime adaptations sometimes failed to demonstrate, translating the world, the bending systems, the political geography, and the emotional architecture of the first season with enough craft to satisfy the considerable majority of the original series' global fanbase. Gordon Cormier as Aang brings the character's specific combination of childlike joy and mythological burden to the role with a naturalism that live-action child leads rarely find in material of this weight. The Avatar's movement vocabulary is built around genuinely learned airbending choreography. The circular, evasive physical language of the style is distinct from the earthbending and firebending sequences and maintained consistently throughout. Dallas Liu as Zuko carries the series' most dramatically loaded arc with a conviction that earns every scene he shares with Paul Sun-hyung Lee, whose Uncle Iroh is the adaptation's single greatest casting achievement. Lee finds the character's warmth, his depth, and his specific quality of wisdom delivered through tea and gentle deflection, without ever allowing the comedy to undercut the genuine sadness that sits underneath every interaction. The production design realizes the show's world, the air temples, the Earth Kingdom settlements, the Fire Nation naval architecture with a scale and a detail that the live-action format enables in ways that the animation, despite its visual invention, could only suggest. The bending action sequences are the production's most technically demanding element, and they deliver consistently. The fights at the Northern Water Tribe across the season's final episodes are staged with the scope, the elemental logic, and the tactical specificity that the source material demands, and that the Netflix budget finally made achievable. Creative choices in the restructuring of the first season's narrative generated legitimate discussion among the franchise's most devoted viewers. Taken on its own terms, however, the live-action Avatar is one of the most technically accomplished and most emotionally faithful fantasy action series the platform has produced in its history. From the elemental action of a beloved animated universe rendered in live action, what follows moves to the streets of contemporary Los Angeles, a cat and mouse between mirrored opponents built by the creator of one of American cable television's most successful crime franchises. Number 4. Nemesis, 2026. Isaiah Stiles is a robbery homicide division lieutenant with the LAPD, methodical, disciplined, haunted by a specific failure from his past that the series reveals gradually and with the patience of a show that understands how to time its revelations. Coltrane Wilder is a master thief operating in Los Angeles, brilliant, family-oriented, and conducting a professional criminal life with enough finesse that he has avoided the level of law enforcement attention his capabilities would normally attract. When their paths converge over a robbery that escalates into something considerably more dangerous for both of them, the cat and mouse that follows is powered by the specific quality of two men who are, in almost every meaningful way, mirrors of each other, operating on opposite sides of an institutional boundary. Courtney A. Kemp, the creator of the Power universe, one of cable television's most sustained crime franchises, brings her first Netflix series to life with the confidence of a showrunner who has spent years studying how institutional loyalty and personal history interact with the mechanics of crime and law enforcement. Matthew Law as Stiles and Yilon Noel as Wilder anchor an 8-episode series that understands the cat-and-mouse genre's most reliable and most elusive tension generator, not making the audience root for one side over the other, but making them invest in both simultaneously with enough depth that neither win feels entirely satisfying. The family dimensions of both characters, Stiles' marriage to a therapist played by Gabrielle Dennis, Wilder's partnership with his wife and accomplice played by Cleopatra Coleman, are developed with a specificity that gives the institutional conflict genuine personal stakes rather than allowing it to remain abstract. Mario Van Peebles, who serves as executive producer and directs the opening 2 episodes, establishes the show's visual grammar and tonal register with a formal command that makes the transition to subsequent directors across the remaining episodes seamless rather than disruptive. The action sequences in Nemesis operate in a specific, restrained register, urban, tactical, scaled to the operational reality of LAPD procedures rather than cinematic exaggeration, and this restraint gives every confrontation a weight that more action-heavy series sacrifice to spectacle in the interest of immediate gratification. Nemesis topped Netflix's global chart in its premiere week. Kemp has spent her entire career making crime television for audiences who want character development alongside their criminal enterprise. And this series is the fullest expression of that particular sensibility to date. From a Los Angeles crime drama built on mirrored character studies, what follows also centers on a man carrying serious personal damage from his past, but relocates the action to the streets and favelas of Rio de Janeiro, where a veteran is trying to become something other than what he was trained to be. Number 5. Man on Fire. 2026. John Creasy was once one of the most effective special forces operatives the United States military could produce. A man of extraordinary professional competence who came back from that profession with severe PTSD, a significant alcohol dependency, and a complete inability to function in the world he had been ostensibly protecting. A.J. Quinnell's 1980 novel has now been adapted 3 times. Once in 1987, once more as the 2004 Tony Scott film starring Denzel Washington that became one of the decade's most beloved action features, and now as a 7-episode Netflix series starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and this adaptation has more time than any of its predecessors to explore what created John Creasy and what it costs him to become functional again. Abdul-Mateen II is the reason this series works at the level it consistently achieves. His Creasy carries the physical authority the role has always required. The man has to be plausibly dangerous, and Abdul-Mateen II never lets the audience forget that, while also accessing an emotional register that makes the PTSD and the alcoholism feel like lived conditions rather than character shorthand deployed for dramatic convenience. The series takes its first 2 episodes to establish Creasy's baseline dysfunction before Poe Rayburn, the teenage daughter of a recently killed intelligence officer, enters the story and provides the specific external reason he needs to reassemble himself into something operational. Billy Boulay as Poe and Alice Braga, as the Brazilian contact who assists Creasy, deliver genuine, fully realized performances in roles that previous adaptations treated as functional supporting positions rather than characters deserving their own interior lives. Kyle Killen's writing gives the show a literary patience that distinguishes it from conventional action television. There are episodes that prioritize the texture of the relationship between Creasy and the people around him over the mechanics of the plot, and those episodes earn the action sequences that follow them. Stephen Caple Jr., who directed Creed II and helms the opening 2 episodes here, establishes a visual language that grounds the action in the specific geography of Rio de Janeiro, its favelas, its upscale neighborhoods, its waterfront areas, in ways that make the city feel like a genuine 5th character rather than an exotic backdrop. Filmed in Mexico and Brazil with location work that gives the favela sequences a physical reality no studio can manufacture, this is the best adaptation of the source material yet produced, and the 7-episode format the story has always deserved. From a veteran's redemption arc in Rio de Janeiro, what follows centers on a very different kind of damaged protagonist, one whose fight is rooted in tribal heritage and personal history in equal measure, and who conducts it in complete silence. Number 6. Echo, 2024. Maya Lopez grew up in the Marvel Universe's periphery, a deaf Native American woman raised within Wilson Fisk's criminal organization after her father's death. Trained to become a weapon in service of a man who used her grief as a recruitment mechanism. Echo is the series that gives her a story entirely of her own, set in her Oklahoma hometown after the events of Hawkeye, following Maya as she attempts to reconnect with a Choctaw Nation family and community she abandoned, and deals with the specific consequences of having been Kingpin's enforcer for years. What distinguishes Echo from standard action television, within or outside the Marvel framework, is not the action alone. Though the fight choreography throughout is exceptional, and the series' first episode contains a practical sequence that ranks among the finest in Marvel's entire television output. It is the show's sustained and specific engagement with its protagonist's complete identity. Alaqua Cox plays Maya with a physical authority and an emotional honesty that makes the character's deafness and her navigation of hearing and deaf worlds feel embedded in who she is rather than performed for the audience's benefit. The use of American Sign Language throughout, the show's subtitles ASL scenes even for hearing audiences, treating the language as legitimate primary communication rather than something to be translated away, gives the action sequences a distinct visual dimension. Maya reads physical space differently because she picks up threat indicators that hearing characters miss. Her silence in confrontation is itself a tactical tool rather than a limitation. The practical fight choreography is built around this specificity rather than treating it as incidental. The show's depiction of Choctaw Nation culture and mythology, the ancestral sequences that connect Maya to the lineage of powerful women preceding her, the community's relationship to their land and to each other, gives the series a mythological resonance that most action television would not have attempted and that most studios would have lacked the patience to develop. At 5 episodes, Echo maintains a focus and an economy that eliminates the filler stretching most streaming series past their optimal length. Charlie Cox's Daredevil and Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin appear in supporting capacities without swamping the character study at the center. Echo demonstrates what Marvel Television can achieve when it commits to a single, specific protagonist and refuses to look past her for the next franchise crossover. From a deaf Native American hero confronting her own heritage in Oklahoma, what follows is a French political thriller that takes one of action cinema's most durable franchises and gives it the 8-episode prestige television treatment it has always warranted. Number 7. Paris Has Fallen, 2024. The Has Fallen franchise, Olympus London Angel, built its identity on a single American operative holding an entire city hostage to his refusal to quit and his willingness to absorb punishment that would realistically end any operative's career within the first 30 minutes. The French television adaptation moves the franchise to a new setting, a new protagonist, and most consequentially, a new format, giving the story 8 episodes to develop the political, institutional, and personal dimensions that the feature films compressed into a single day of escalating physical damage. The result is one of the most formally accomplished entries in the franchise's history and a strong argument that the television format is actually where the Has Fallen premise belongs. The series follows a French intelligence officer navigating the discovery that a terrorist threat against Paris has institutional dimensions, that elements within the very apparatus designed to prevent the attack may be facilitating it. The political labyrinth this creates gives the show its dramatic spine, and it is a more complex and more compelling spine than the franchise's feature films were able to develop in the time available to them. The Parisian setting is used with a geographic intelligence that the franchise's American entries deployed primarily as spectacle. The city's arrondissements, its underground infrastructure, its governmental architecture, all functioning here as operational terrain with specific tactical logic rather than as background material for set pieces. The action sequences are staged with the clarity and physicality of French action cinema at its best. Practical, spatially legible, built around the specific consequences of what is happening rather than choreographic virtuosity deployed for its own sake. The intelligence community procedural dimension, which the show develops in parallel with its action thriller mechanics, gives the series a depth that action-adjacent television rarely attempts to sustain across a full 8-episode season. The ensemble is consistently strong, the French industry's depth of talent visible in supporting roles that the show develops, with enough attention that each character's choices in the final act carry genuine weight rather than arriving as convenient plot mechanics. Paris Has Fallen understands that the franchise formula has always been about institutional trust collapsing and a single person deciding that the only response available to them is to keep moving forward. And giving that formula 8 episodes allows it to examine exactly what makes the collapse of institutional trust actually frightening. 7 series, all of them on Netflix right now. All of them worth the investment of your time. 7 Netflix action series spanning 1,200-year-old Witcher mythology, Japanese ninja dynasties, the live-action realization of one of animation's most beloved worlds, a Los Angeles crime thriller from the creator of Power, a new Man on Fire built around one of the best action performances of the year, a Marvel series that demonstrated what the format can actually achieve with genuine artistic commitment, and a French political thriller that gave an entire franchise the prestige television format it deserved. The range is the point. This platform's action series catalog covers more tonal and geographic and historical ground than any competing service, and most of it generates less conversation than it warrants. If this list found you something that earned 7 episodes of your attention, that is exactly what this channel is for. More lists coming? Stay locked in.